George Gervin was one of the most electrifying scorers in basketball history, a true artist with the ball, known for his signature finger roll and effortless scoring ability. A Hall of Famer, a four-time NBA scoring champion, and an ABA legend, Gervin dazzled fans with his smooth play and ice-cold demeanor. He was the face of the San Antonio Spurs before they became a dynasty, carrying the franchise with his offensive brilliance. But after the cheers faded and the lights dimmed, life became much harder. Addiction took hold, financial struggles mounted, and years of wear and tear on his body left him battling chronic pain. The fame and fortune of his playing days did not last, and the same game that made him a legend ultimately left him behind. Health concerns, neurological issues, and fading recognition now define his later years. Once untouchable on the court, he now faces an uncertain reality. This is the tragic story of George the Iceman Gervin at 72 years old. George Gervin's rise to basketball stardom was nothing short of remarkable. Born in 1952 in the heart of Detroit, he grew up in a tough neighborhood where survival often depended on finding an escape. For Gervin, that escape was basket. The streets taught him more than just the game. They shaped his smooth, effortless style. Unlike the physical bruisers of his era, Gervin played with finesse, gliding past defenders and making scoring look easy. But beneath the surface, his journey was far from simple. Discipline was a challenge. Despite his talent, he struggled to conform to structure, bouncing between streetball courts and high school gyms. Coaches saw his potential, but keeping him focused was no small task. It wasn't until his late high school years that he truly began refining his craft, developing the finger roll that would later make him an icon. With his natural scoring ability, he earned a spot at Eastern Michigan University, where he dominated on the court. But an on-court altercation during a game led to his dismissal, putting his basketball future in jeopardy. With his college dreams derailed, Gervin's career could have ended before it even began. But fate had other plans. In 1972, the Virginia Squires of the ABA took a chance on him. There, he played alongside the legendary Julius Erving, learning from one of the best while honing his unique scoring touch. The ABA was the perfect playground for Gervin's creativity. Wide open, fast-paced, and built for scorers. He quickly became a sensation, proving that he could put up points against anyone. His ability to glide through defenses with his signature finger roll became his trademark, an unstoppable move that left defenders helpless. By 1974, his talent was undeniable. The San Antonio Spurs, recognizing his potential, acquired him in a move that would change the course of the franchise. It didn't take long for Gervin to become the face of the team. Night after night, he lit up the scoreboard with an effortless grace that few players possessed. Defenders knew he was going to score. They just couldn't stop him. His 4 NBA scoring titles in 5 years cemented his place of the most lethal offensive players of all time. Gervin's dominance wasn't just about points. It was about style. He redefined what it meant to be a scorer, blending finesse and efficiency in a way that felt almost effortless. His 9 All-Star appearances were a testament to his greatness, but numbers alone couldn't capture his impact. He didn't just put up points. He made basketball. Fans marveled at his fluidity, his ability to score in ways that no one else could. He wasn't just a great player, he was an artist on the court. But while Gervin's game looked effortless, the battles he fought behind the scenes were anything but easy. His rise to stardom had been built on raw talent and perseverance, but it was also fueled by a deep need to escape the struggles of his past. The fame, the accolades, and the spotlight masked the personal demons he carried with him. As the world celebrated the Iceman, few realized that the real fight had only just begun. By the late 1970s, George Gervin was one of the most dominant scorers the game had ever seen. His effortless finger roll, smooth shooting touch, and unshakable confidence made him nearly unguardable. He played with a calmness that defied the intensity of the game, making everything look easy. But while his game was thriving, his life off the court was beginning to unravel. The bright lights of stardom came with temptations, and Gervin embraced the fast life that often followed NBA superstardom. The late nights, the parties, and the lifestyle that seemed glamorous on the surface were quietly taking a toll on him, affecting not just his physical health but also his relationships and reputation. As his fame grew, so did the whispers of substance abuse. Reports of drug use, particularly cocaine, began to surface, raising concerns about his long-term future. Gervin never let it show on the court, at least not at first. He remained one of the league's top scorers, carrying the offensive load for the Spurs night after night. But behind the scenes, his struggles were growing harder to ignore. His relationships with teammates became strained, and his focus wavered. The San Antonio Spurs had built their franchise around him, but concerns about his off-court habits created tension within the organization. Coaches and executives worried that his discipline was slipping, but Gervin's talent was undeniable, making it difficult to take action. Despite his issues, Gervin continued to put up numbers. Scoring came as naturally as breathing, and as long as he delivered on the court, the Spurs had little choice but to look the other way. But basketball is a team game, and individual brilliance could only take them so far. Year after year, the Spurs fell short in the playoffs. No championships, no deep runs, just more missed opportunities. As the losses piled up, the frustration within the organization grew. Gervin's dominance in the regular season could not change the fact that the team wasn't built to win when it mattered most. By the mid-1980s, the league was evolving, and so was the Spurs' vision for the future. Gervin, once untouchable, was no longer the franchise's sole centerpiece. Younger stars were emerging, and the team was moving in a new direction. His once unstoppable offensive dominance wasn't enough to overcome the growing concerns about his discipline and leadership. The Spurs, needing a fresh start, made a shocking decision. In 1985, after more than a decade as the face of the franchise, Gervin was traded to the Chicago Bulls. It was a bitter pill to swallow. He had given everything to San Antonio, but the organization had decided to move on. He joined the Bulls for what would be his final NBA season, playing alongside a young Michael Jordan. But this wasn't the Gervin of old. His scoring touch was still there, but the fire that once fueled him seemed dimmed. His minutes were limited, his role reduced, and, for the first time in his career, he was just another player instead of a superstar. He struggled to adapt to playing second fiddle, and the realization that his prime had passed weighed heavily on him. After that season, his NBA career was over, but Gervin wasn't ready to let go. He spent time playing overseas, hoping to reignite the passion that had once defined him. He played in Italy, then later in Spain, searching for the magic that had once come so effortlessly. But it was never the same. The years of wear and tear, the late nights, the battles with addiction, all of it had caught up with him. He was no longer the Iceman who dominated the court with his effortless scoring. He was a man searching for a purpose that basketball could no longer provide. Retirement didn't come with a victory lap or a grand farewell. It came with silence, uncertainty, and a loss of identity. Without the structure of basketball, Gervin struggled to find stability. The game had always been his anchor, but now, without, he was left to face the real challenges that had been building for years. The adoration of fans was gone, and the thrill of competition had faded. He was left with memories of his greatness, but memories couldn't guide him forward. His scoring touch had never faded, but the game was changing, and when basketball was no longer there to ground him, the real challenges began. George Gervin's life after basketball was filled with hardships. The game had given him fame, money, and purpose, but once it was gone, the struggles he had fought to keep at bay came rushing to the surface. Without the structure of the NBA, his addiction spiraled out of control. What had once been occasional indulgence turned into a battle he could no longer hide. Cocaine and alcohol became his escape, numbing the pain of retirement and the emptiness that came with losing the only thing he had ever known. Throughout the 1990s, Gervin found himself in and out of rehab, attempting to regain control. Each time, he vowed to change, to get clean, but the cycle repeated itself. The more he struggled, the more opportunities slipped away. Business ventures that once seemed promising crumbled, and former teammates and friends watched as the Iceman, once one of the smoothest and most confident players on the court, now fought an opponent he couldn't shake. His relationships with loved ones became strained, and those closest to him saw firsthand the toll addiction was taking on his life. Financially, Gervin should have been secure. He had made millions during his playing career, earning salaries that most could only dream of. But money, like fame, can disappear quickly without proper guidance. Poor investments drained his wealth, and without a steady income, his financial situation became increasingly dire. Unlike today's NBA stars, who have teams of advisors to guide them, players from Gervin's era were largely on their own. The contracts weren't as lucrative, and retirement often came without a plan. As the years passed, Gervin had to take jobs wherever he could. Coaching positions, appearances, and community programs became his way of staying connected to the game, but they weren't enough to maintain the lifestyle he had once enjoyed. He worked with young players, hoping to steer them away from the mistakes he had made, but his own struggles never fully disappeared. He gave speeches on discipline and perseverance, yet behind closed doors, he was still fighting his demons. Despite the hardships, Gervin never stopped trying to rebuild. He found purpose in mentoring, dedicating himself to helping troubled youth in San Antonio. His experiences, both triumphs and failures, made him uniquely suited to guide the next generation. He spoke openly about his past, using his story as a warning and a lesson. For many, he became an inspiration, a man who had fallen but refused to stay down. But even as he worked to lift others up, his personal battles remained. The years of substance abuse had taken a toll on his body and mind. The financial security he once had was gone, and the realities of aging were setting in. The public saw glimpses of the man who had once ruled the court, but behind the scenes, the fight continued. The Iceman had once been untouchable, a player who made the game look effortless. But in retirement, life was anything but smooth. Addiction took its toll, and the financial security he once had slowly slipped away. Though he found purpose in mentoring others, his personal battles never truly disappeared. The game had moved on, the fans had found new heroes, and George Gervin was left to face the struggles that basketball had kept at bay for so many years. Decades of playing through pain caught up with George Gervin. The Iceman, once graceful and seemingly untouchable, now wakes up to a reality that is far from the effortless motion that defined his game. The same legs that once carried him past defenders with ease now ache with every step. His knees, battered by years of relentless play, have endured multiple surgeries, including replacements that only offer temporary relief. Severe arthritis grips his joints, making even the most basic movements a challenge. The pain is constant, a cruel reminder of the sacrifices he made for a game that has long since moved on without him. During his career, rest was a luxury he couldn't afford. He played through injuries, ignoring the warnings of doctors and the limits of his body. Painkillers, ice baths, and sheer willpower kept him going, but the cost of those decisions was never meant to be felt in his 20s or 30s. Now, at 72, the damage is undeniable. The same hands that delivered his iconic finger roll sometimes struggle to grip a cup of coffee. His back, his hips, his ankles, everything hurts. He gave the game everything, and now his body is failing him. But the toll isn't just physical. The years of absorbing contact, of taking hits, of crashing into defenders without hesitation, have left a deeper scar. Memory loss creeps in, names and moments slipping from his grasp. Conversations become difficult, and frustration sets in as words don't come as easily as they once did. At times, his speech is slow, his thoughts trailing off before he can finish them. Friends and family notice the changes, and the fear grows. Could this be the early stages of something much worse? The possibility of CTE looms over him, a condition that has affected so many athletes who played in eras where head trauma was ignored. The science wasn't there when Gervin was in his prime, and now, like so many others, he is left to wonder if the countless hits, the repeated blows to the head, and the relentless wear on his brain are now manifesting in ways that can't be undone. The man who once controlled the pace of a game now struggles to control the simple rhythms of his own mind and body. Doctors offer treatments, but there is no cure. Therapy helps, but it doesn't erase the years of damage. The symptoms will only worsen with time. Gervin knows it. The independence he once enjoyed slipping away. The confidence that defined him, the cool demeanor that made him legendary, is now tested by the daily battles against his own body and mind. The fans who once watched him glide across the court rarely see this side of him. They remember the highlights, the dominance, the effortless scoring. But behind the scenes, the struggle is real. For years, he ignored the pain, thinking it was just part of the game. Now, there is no escaping it. The Iceman, once a symbol of poise and control, faces a battle that no amount of skill or finesse can overcome. His body, once his greatest weapon, has become a source of constant suffering. The price of greatness is being paid, one painful step at a time. The game gave him everything, but it took just as much away. George Gervin was once the face of the San Antonio Spurs, a player who revolutionized scoring in the NBA. His game was effortless, his style unmatched, and his influence undeniable. For over a decade, carried a franchise, filling arenas with fans eager to witness his brilliance. He put up numbers that cemented his place in history, won scoring titles that proved his dominance, and became a Hall of Famer recognized among the greats. Time has a way of rewriting the narrative. Players that came after him, the championships that followed his era, the modern faces of the Spurs, they have all pushed his legacy further into the background. Franchise he helped build is now celebrated for a different dynasty. Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, names that defined the modern Spurs, champions who delivered titles and carried the team to new heights. And while the organization honors its history, Gervin's contributions have slowly faded from the spotlight. He was never given the grand farewell, the high-profile coaching roles, or the continuous public recognition some of his contemporaries received. The banners still hang, his jersey remains retired, but his presence in today's game is nearly non-existent. Despite everything he gave to basketball, the support he receives from the league is minimal. The NBA thrives off its legends, using their names to boost its legacy. But when the cameras stop rolling and the ticket sales no longer depend on them, many are left behind. Gervin, like so many others from his era, finds himself on the outside looking in. The money the league generates today is astronomical compared to when he played. Players now sign contracts worth hundreds of millions, their careers extending into lucrative post-retirement ventures. But for Gervin's generation, the financial security that should have lasted a lifetime simply wasn't there. The lack of long-term health care for retired players is a cruel reality that many of them face. The injuries they played through, the concussions they endured, the wear and tear they ignored, it all resurfaces later in life. And when it does, help is hard to find. The NBA has made efforts to support its legends, but for many, including Gervin, those efforts fall short. Medical bills pile up, the cost of treatments becomes overwhelming, and with no steady income, options become limited. The league's billion-dollar empire was built on the backs of players like Gervin, yet many of them are left to struggle alone. Gervin's story is not unique, and that is what makes it even more tragic. The game he gave everything to has moved forward, and he, like so many others, has been left behind. The Iceman still remains cool, but time has taken its toll. The effortless grace he once displayed on the court has been replaced by the weight of years filled with battles, both physical and personal. The fans who once idolized him have grown older, and a new generation has taken their place, unfamiliar with the man who once made scoring look so easy. His name may still be in the record books, but in the fast-moving world of sports, history can be forgotten if it's not constantly celebrated. Basketball was Gervin's life, but in the end, the game doesn't always give back in the way players hope. His legacy remains, but the recognition, the support, and the care that should come with it have not. He is a Hall of Famer, an icon, a player who changed the way the game was played. Yet his later years are a stark contrast to the glory he once knew. The game that made him a star now watches from a distance as he struggles with the very sacrifices he made to become great. Time has taken its toll, and the legend of George Gervin, like so many before him, risks being lost in the shadows of the sport's ever-changing landscape.